for the Central Appraisal District of El Paso. Today's January the 18th, 2018 is 5:02. Let's go ahead and do roll call. Jerry Romero present. Lori Searles. Vince Perez. Mike Rosales. Gary Gandra. Ben Morales.
Here.
Chuck Taylor.
Here.
Al Velarde.
Here.
Joyce Wilson. We do have five here, so we do have a quorum. Let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. The record reflects that Mrs. Searles just joined us. That's it. No, you're fine. Tab item 1 is the swearing in of the board of directors for the year of 2018.
Mr. Chairman, we do have Judge Gamboa here to swear in the board members for 2018, so if you guys will, all your attention to the judge.
All right, stand up, please.
And thank you very much for coming, Judge.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to administer the oath. And my wish for this board is that the centerpiece of your service is integrity and fairness. And with that, if you would raise your right hand. Once I say I, then you state your names. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office as a member of the Board of Directors of the El Paso Central Appraisal District of the State of Texas, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and the State of Texas. So help me God. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. All right, now that we're official.
And as you will see, you have a document there for you to sign for our files.
Tab item number 2 is the election of the board officers for the 2018 Board of Directors.
Currently, Mr. Chairman, we have yourself as chair, Ms. Lori Searles as co-chair, and Mr. Vince Pettis as secretary. There are those 3 positions that need to be filled, remain the same. It's board discretion, so I'm turning it over to you.
Are there any nominations from the floor?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to leave it the same, if there are no nominations from the floor.
I move that the slate remain the same as last year.
All right, we have a motion to have the slate remain the same. Those that are serving currently, I'm assuming you want to continue to serve?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Congratulations.
Moving on to tab item 3, and let the record reflect that Ms. Wilson joined us. Public comment?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we have no one signed up for public comment.
No public comment. Very well. Just need to move. Moving on to tab item number 4, the approval and signing of the minutes from November the 16th, 2017. You all had a chance to review the minutes.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Searles. The first was motion by Mr. Perez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the 2016-2017 financial audit.
Mr. Chairman, board members, we do have a representative from our outside audit firm, accounting firm, and they have passed out the audit, and so we're going to have them come up and give you a report.
Okay.
And I apologize. Want to get me again?
Hello,
Yeah, I got these.
my name is Jessica Mayu. I'm with Peña Briones McDaniel, and I'm going to be going over the financial statements with you all. The first thing I'd like to talk about is going to be the 5-year financial summary. It was put in your packets. If anybody doesn't have one, can you let me know? We're good? Perfect. So on the first one is the current assets. If you look at it, there was a slight increase from 2016, a 2% increase, which is a good sign. Your net position liability is relatively new and is directly related to the implementation of the GASB 68 guidance. Your net position has decreased. As auditors, we look for continuity, and this is a good reflection on management and the use of money received from the taxing jurisdictions. So that's good. There's a 1% increase in revenue and is a reflective growth in the county growing. Property values have remained relative the same as in prior tax assessments. The jurisdiction funding, the expenditures have remained relatively constant over the past few years. There's a slight increase of about 1% from prior year, which is in line with the slight increase in revenue that occurred for the year as well. The due to taxing jurisdictions has increased for this year because you do not spend as much as in the previous years. In the prior year, you had encumbered $800,000 for litigation and strategic planning, and this year there was only a $400,000 for litigation. So if you want to take a look at the financial statements, on pages 1 through 3 is the independent auditor's report, which basically states that we have issued a clean opinion with no findings on the financial statements. So everything was really clean. Everything went really smoothly through this audit. On pages 4 through 5 are the financial statements, which provides more detail of the items that I previously discussed in the 5-year summary. Your total assets increase from prior year, which is a good sign. It means that your assets are liquid. That's a good sign for us. And your total net position decrease as previously stated. On page 27, you'll look at your actual revenue exceeded the budget by $43,000, which is due to the county growth as previously mentioned. A couple of items that I want to point out is going to be your salaries and wages and your employee benefits, which was less than the budgeted amounts. Your fixed asset acquisition and legal fees were over budget. However, they were offset with the $800,000 that was encumbered in prior year and which was used in current year. So overall, there was only about a 14% over budget for those major items, which is the fixed asset and your legal fees. So overall, the actual expenses were less than the budget amount, which is excellent. We always want to make sure that the actual expenditures don't exceed your budgeted amount. So that's a good sign. Good management's doing what they need to make sure that everything's in line and flowing properly. On page 35 is the report on internal controls, which discusses if we find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies on compliance with laws and regulations. Based on our test work that we performed, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And so basically it appears that the district has a good segregation of duties, and again, everything is running smoothly in the district. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. It's probably just to resolve something in my mind. And I go all the way back to the page II. I look at legal fees. And then I look at these litigation fees encumbered on the first sheet that we went through. And I just need an explanation to satisfy my inquiry, perhaps.
Okay,
Do we have a legal section within?
Yes, sir. We have a lot of lawsuits filed against the appraisal district that we must defend. And a couple of the major property owners here, it's very expensive for expert witnesses and expert documentation, appraisals. So we never had enough funding, and so the board approved to build up a litigation reserve so that we would have the funding to be able to go as far as we can and get the reports to defend these lawsuits filed against the appraisal district.
Well, I'm not really following that. If we have a paid, budgeted legal staff,
We don't have a legal staff in
Legal
terms
Oh, no,
of-
you mean like an attorney? Oh, no.
No, they're contract outside legal
so we are,
counsel.
this is contracted outside
Yes, sir.
money.
Yes, sir.
That's all I need.
Yes,
to
sir.
know.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I
Thank you.
apologize.
Are there any other questions on the financials?
Do you need a motion to take the report, or what do we move to accept it or approve it?
Yes. Please.
I'll make a motion to accept the,
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson to accept the financial audit as
Second.
presented. Mr. Taylor seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
thank
Moving on to the tab item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding the El Paso Central Appraisal District investment policy.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, we're going to again have Ms. Mayo from Peña
Okay. Is
discuss
there
that.
any documentation to that?
Yes, it was handed out to you. It's titled the investment policy. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So years ago, we suggested an investment policy, and this is just basically due to the changes in banking legislation concerning short-term investments that are required to be collateralized. So if you look on page 4, and it talks about authorized collateral, you'll see there's 2 items that are highlighted. So the FDIC required that bank funds be tied up in the district's name to ensure coverage of investment, which in return lowered their capabilities of providing lending to other businesses or other people. So the banks did not want to lose out on the opportunity to continue lending, so they refrained from offering services to collateralize your investments or your securities. So now the banks are now changing their policy to accept letters of credit by the Federal Home Loan Bank, so that banks can simply provide a letter of credit that does not tie up their funds in the district's name. So therefore, you had to revise your policy to include the highlighted verbiage, which is taken directly out of Chapter 2257 of the Government Code of Collateral for Public Funds. And this basically just states that you are allowing letters of credit to be used as collateral for your investments. So in this return, will allow more banks to offer this option to you all.
So hopefully when we go out to bid for banking purposes, there'll be more that will respond to the bid because of this. Your investment policy was implemented, and then in 2015, we took it to the board and made some adjustments, but it was based on the changes in Gatsby. We updated our investment policy, and that's basically what this revision is just to update the policy to better meet the needs.
We approve this on an annual basis?
Yes, sir. Mhm. We usually, when we do the financial audit, we bring in the investment policy. Even if we have no changes to the investment policy, we'll bring it to the board. And so every year it's approved at the same time you approve the audit.
Are there any questions concerning the policy?
Is it normal practice for an outside investment firm who's conducting an audit to present, I guess, the policy changes for an investment policy?
We recommend certain things just because we're familiar with the policies that are occurring and the regulations and laws that have come. And so we want to make sure that you are able to properly adapt those changes so that you're in compliance with all of that.
And our CFO, Ms. Rosa Goldman, reviews this policy every year and makes recommendations along with to the audit firm. And these were her recommendations also.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
She reviews it every year.
Just asking standard practice for an outside firm to,
I thought you meant an investment firm,
well, the audit firm.
the audit firm, okay.
Yeah. Because, I mean, these things are supposed to be managed internally, right, by staff, and they're
Yes,
primarily managed
they are.
internally, so any
We don't
changes-
have investments.
Right. I
You
mean,
know,
the policies.
so it's kind, but we do want to meet the letter of the law with
Right.
this. And so, yes, in-house, we do go over the investment policy every year. Our CFO reviews it with the changes in either Gatsby accounting, changes in the accounting code or the government code, and then we'll make recommendations. And this is all that we saw.
When did this change come out?
I think it was always there, we just hadn't updated ours.
Okay.
And so we wanted to add that extra language into ours to better meet that section 2257. We also wanted to explain a little bit better, this was a recommendation from Ms. Goldman, the part about under A, the including mortgage-backed securities. If you notice under C, we kind of went in a little more detail on that one. We wanted to mirror how that is listed in the code. And so we took the language right out of the code.
Any other questions?
If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the changes to the investment policy as presented. We have a motion by Mr. Morales. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Wilson. Any further discussion? All,
I was just going to note, at least I think we've made as a board had said, indicated that we'd like items put on the backup. So just generally, if there's an item that's not presented on the backup, I'm going to vote no.
okay.
We just received all of this today. The auditors started working in December and worked all the way up until today. So we just received this from the auditors.
Well, then
today.
is it necessary that we vote on it today?
Yes, ma'am, we would like to get it in place as of the first of the year going forward because we'll be following this the whole year.
But I think to Mr. Pettis' comment that
I mean, is there anything that would harm us to delay it for a month so that board members who want time to review it have an opportunity to review it?
The investment policy, you can change the investment policy anytime you want. So if you want to, you know, we can vote on it right now and then
Like
you
to
can review it if
table
you want to come
until
back.
the
You
next
know.
meeting?
I'm fine with tabling it. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll move to table, well, there's
Okay.
already a motion.
So, would you withdraw your motion? Okay, we have, Mr. Morales has withdrawn his motion. We'll go ahead and table this item until the next board meeting, so we've had an opportunity to review it. And I think,
Everybody has a chance to review it.
and going back to the comments of Mr. Pettis, I think we've talked about this in the past. And I know this is kind of short notice, so if there is not some urgency to the matter, if we can just make sure that the documentation is in there when we get the board packets, that'll probably be the smoothest way to get these, the package into the board members' hands. Alrighty. Moving on to tab item number 7, review and approval of the financial reports for October and November 2017.
Good evening, Rosa Goldman, Chief Financial Officer. We are presenting the financial report for the months of October and November 2017. The report contains the balance sheet, report of revenues, expenditures, and changes in cash balance, the investment report, and the note to the financial report. As you can see, these are the first 2 months of the fiscal year, and we don't have any negative variances. At the end of the report, under the note to the financials, well, we only have the encumbered funds for litigation reserve, which is new for this fiscal year, of $400,000, and we will, you know, as we start using it, we haven't yet, but once we start using monies from that reserve, we will continue to notify you and put it in that section of the financial report. Are there any questions?
Yes, we have a question.
This might be a stupid question, but so you've got this big chunk of money. Are you investing it in anything? We were just talking.
Of course.
About,
Oh,
okay,
yes.
good,
Of course.
Thank you.
We have an investment, I mean, the current policy stays in place, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
The
Just
investment
this one.
policy
I
we have right now.
understand. I just want to make
We
sure they're
invested
doing
in
something under any
CDs.
Well,
policy.
right there in the
It's not just sitting
financials, yeah, we have the investment report right there and the financial report, and it shows all the amounts that we are investing.
I just didn't know if it was specifically that chunk.
That's part of it. Right now,
It's
if you
part
can
of
see,
$1
it.
million, actually.
we
Yes.
have almost
yes.
$6 million
Yeah.
Yeah,
Invested.
invested.
At various maturities, and some that are, available anytime. But yeah, most of our monies are invested. We check every single
I
day.
just didn't know what the legal, do you
Sure.
you could need to call on it at any second. Do you invest it or do you not? So thank you, I'm
Yes.
glad we do.
That's one reason why the income went up a little bit. We got a little more in interest
Yes.
this year, so.
You're expecting 3 more interest hikes in 2018, yeah, so you see a little bit more of a return. So how much is in how much is in the legal fund right now?
400,000. Well,
That's in
with
the encumbered, but
In the
oh,
encumbered.
in the
Encumbered.
line item, we
But the-
have spent, if you go to your November, we've spent year-to-date 189,000, and we had budgeted, I think it was 435.
right,
And then you have the reserve, right?
right,
Right.
the 400.
I'm sorry, yeah, 465 is what we budgeted. We spent 189,000 in
In 2
October
months.
and November. So we still have money in the line item, so, and we had a lot less. Remember I gave a report back in November that we had more accounts sign off on waivers
Mm-hmm.
than we've ever had, so we're hoping that our lawsuits will be, we still have the continuing lawsuits, but we're hoping that they will, because they can't file a lawsuit with a waiver.
Just for my own clarification, we do have that encumbrance, but we have not added to the legal reserve, have we?
No.
The litigation reserve was added to back in August. And we're done. We can't add any more to that until next year. So we
Okay.
had, I think, 100,000 or something like that left was all, because we used up all of our budget, and so you gave us enough to bring it back up to 400,000.
Okay.
So, but that's it. That is set. Nothing else will go into that.
Any discussions on the financial reports? Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financials as presented for October, November. We have a motion by Mr. Pettis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Searles. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab item 9, discussion and possible action regarding the annual computer-assisted mass appraisal maintenance
Mr.
contract.
Chairman, could we do number 8, just a monthly health benefit
I'm sorry,
report?
I
It won't
went
take but a
right by
minute.
it.
Sorry.
Tab item 8, monthly health benefit report, October, November.
And it is right after the financial report. We have the balance as of November 2017 was 553,607. And we have below on the same page, we have all of the previous fiscal year, so that we can see, so that we can compare.
There's no action needed on that one. It's just
No.
information for the board.
I'm sorry, what was the amount you said?
553,607
At the top of
and
the
85.
sheet is got the new fiscal year. At the bottom sheet is last year's fiscal year, so that we can now run a comparison.
No, okay.
So your October and November 17
Is on top.
are the beginning of our 17-18 fiscal year.
Are the claims paid year-to-date? The 128,000, is that year-to-date or just for the?
Well, as of November, that's what the third-party administrator paid.
Just the month of November?
In the month of November, that's what they paid.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, now moving on to tab item number 9, discussion and
Thank
possible
you.
action regarding the annual CAMA maintenance contract.
Chairman, board members, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Stone to visit. This was in your agenda breakdown, because it is kind of a sole source. They own the CAMA system, so they have to maintain it. And I'll let Mr. Stone go over that with you. There was no additional handout or anything.
According to our agreement with Harris Government True Automation, we're required to pay an annual maintenance fee for our CAMA software. The invoice that we received for this year is $218,500.30. We had budgeted $227,584. The reason that the budget amount was higher than what we got billed on is at the time that we we do the budget for the year. We don't have the invoice for that year, and they're allowed to increase their maintenance fee by 7% a year. They didn't increase it 7% this year, and that's part of the reason why our actual amount is going to be less than the budgeted amount. And like Dinah said, this is basically a sole source item because we have to pay the vendor, and we're just asking the board to approve it because of the dollar amount.
It's over the 500. It's over the 50,000 that I'm allowed to approve, and it's a yearly contract. So we bring it back to the
Do we
board
own
every
the
year.
system or do we run it?
Well, we own it, but we're required to pay maintenance on it.
They pay the maintenance.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, so we already approved the budget for 227,000, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And it came in a lower amount?
218.
Yes.
So why are we having to reapprove it?
We just have to approve the
Because it-
expenditure.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve.
Yes.
You
the
really don't, but we felt like we wanted to bring it
That's
before
good,
the
I was
board.
gonna say, because once it was put
Yeah.
in the budget. Okay, but we have a motion to go ahead and approve the change in the contract by Ms. Wilson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab item number 10, discussion and possible action regarding agreement of legal services.
Mr. Chairman, board members, you see before you a letter was addressed to me from Mr. Longoria from Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collin, and Mott. They are the premier lawyers dealing with appraisal districts and dealing with appraisal districts of our size and with our types of properties. And Mr. Longoria is here to kind of go over. They are increasing their rates. It's still very, very reasonable and within within an acceptable level for us, and because of their expertise and what we've been working with them all these years, the recommendation from staff is to go ahead and continue with them, but I'll let Mr. Longoria go over the contract.
Well, good evening, board members. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody here for the opportunity that you've given my firm the past 30-some-odd years to represent this appraisal district. And quite frankly, you know, we're glad to do the work. We're proud to be out here. You're one of our most visible clients that we have. We've made a lot of great case law out here, and it's just, you know, we just like working with the group out here. We really do. Unfortunately, reality comes into, you know, our day-to-day practice. We're lawyers, but we also have businesses to run. Frankly, our rates are $185 an hour. Our market rates we've seen for opposing counsel, even here in El Paso, is sometimes in the $400 range, $400 to $500 range. When you get into opposing counsel from say Dallas to Houston, their hourly rates are in the $600 range. We have held off raising rates for our clients as long as we could, and some of the reasons for that is, you know, one, you're a longtime client, and secondly, we realize that we're asking y'all to make a further expenditure of public tax dollars, and we take that very seriously when we come to a client. Our last increase here, I believe, was in 2009 or 2011. So we have held that $185 for that time period. I like to think that we've done a good job for you. We have built up our reputation, and by ours, I mean the districts and my firms and our attorneys' reputation with the court system here, because it's not just me who they see when I walk into a court. They see me, and they see me as a representative of this appraisal district. And we've worked very, very hard over the past several years to, quite frankly, repair some of the views that were held about this appraisal district. We think we've done a very good job on that. What the contract rate that we're asking for is an increase from $185 to $215. The majority of our other clients are at that rate. It is still in general civil trial practice, that is an extraordinarily low rate. If I were out practicing on my own, I would probably be billing in the $500 to $600 an hour range. Mr. Mott, my law partner, he would probably be billing in the $600 to $700 an hour range because of the expertise. However, we realize once again that we represent the public here. We represent a public entity, So we do think long and hard before we come forward to a board and ask them if they will frankly give us a raise. And that being said, I think we're worth it. We've done a good job for y'all, and we would love the opportunity. Whichever we will continue representing this district, whatever the decision is here. But we're to the point that we've had to come and ask for this increase. Yes, sir.
My concern is best value.
Yes, sir.
And if we look at what you are presenting us and look at the overall industry,
Yes, sir.
would we conclude best value?
Well, of course, you're asking somebody who's very biased in that. I
I understand.
I do believe that we bring the best value to the table. Because frankly, I've been practicing in this field specifically only. And this is, I live and breathe and will probably someday die doing this. I've been doing this since 1991. My law partner, who is now of counsel of the firm, Robert Mott, has been doing this since 1980 when the practice code was being created and crafted. He was there. He's still of counsel to the firm, does a lot of work, is highly respected. We have several other attorneys who've been in this field for that long. I can relate some of the anecdotes of the fees that we've seen here in El Paso. We tried a case involving opposing counsel where they made a case for their fees, and they were requesting, I believe, $350 an hour rate. And that particular attorney had a general practice, very good attorney, but he had a general practice, did not specialize in the type of area that we do. So we're actually behind the general rate here. But once again, that being said, we recognize that the rates for a public entity are not going to be the same as for a private entity. We do believe we'll give you the best value. When I come out here, it's not for one little thing. I usually make a couple of days trip and give you the best bang for the buck. We have our local counsel who handles the day-to-day things, nothing that's complicated. But with regard to general counsel, my firm fulfills that role. If you get an extraordinarily complicated or even mildly complicated, whatever type of litigation, we feel we're more than capable of handling that. And we did that over the past several years, including the refinery for one, several hotels. To answer your question, yes, I do think we bring the best value to this appraisal district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as the procurement of these services, do we have to follow procurement rules for legal services?
No, sir.
They're considered professional services, such as architectural. They're not subject to the bidding requirements.
So there's no competition requirement?
No, there's not.
Searles?
No, I was just,
Ms. Wilson?
I mean, I have a kind of procedural question. I'm concerned like we're just getting all this stuff now. I mean, we didn't even have a meeting last month, and all these things should have been anticipated that they're going to be renewed this year. And I don't disagree that you're a really great firm and probably warranted, but I do kind of have a procedural issue about that. I really wanted to, I know, our other attorney's not here, is she, to go into executive session?
Oh, Ms. Hagerman, she's the local that works
She's local
under,
counsel,
she
yes.
works with him. She's contracted by Purdue,
Actually,
granted it
she's-
for local.
Yeah, she contracts with our firm to serve as local counsel on my firm's behalf to this appraisal district.
Because she does no work for any individual property owner or entity, so there's no conflict. Yeah, that's an issue we have with using local counsel is, do they represent somebody that we're suing or may sue? And Ms. Hagerman, working under Purdue Brandon, is our local counsel, and she doesn't do anything but, for us, the appraisal district.
Do we have to make the decision at this meeting?
It's the board's pleasure, certainly. If you want to table it, it is your pleasure.
Table it for the
Okay.
February meeting?
As we did with the other item, we'll go ahead and table this until next month. Dinah, you and I will sit down, we'll talk about documentation for the board book. I think we've already had a conversation around that. And we'll start making sure that we get some additional documentation and descriptions inside our board book to the tab item that we're discussing at the time. Okay, moving on to tab item number 11, Discussion and possible action regarding the designation of a voting delegate and alternate to the Texas Association of Appraisal Districts Conference.
And I did give you this information back in November, and I gave it to you again. It's the very colorful handout that has all the information about the TAD conference in Fort Worth. We need a delegate from the appraisal district. It needs to be a director or a board of directors as a delegate and an alternate. And it's up to the board if they want to send just one or if they want to send the delegate and the alternate.
I mean, I've gone in the past. I know Ms. Wilson has gone in the past. Is there anybody that has an interest in
Would like
attending?
to go? It's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I've been before. It's fabulous.
I can't, my problem is on the 28th, I've got to be in another place.
Yeah, I've got to be in Galveston on the 28th.
If the board agrees, I will attend as a delegate, and we'll just need to appoint someone else as an alternate in case something comes up and I can't make it. Vince, possibility?
I'm available, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We'll go, if,
Commissioner, you'll be the alternate?
I'm available.
All right.
So I move to approve Chairman Romero and Secretary Pettis for the position of delegate and alternate to the TAD conference.
I'll
yeah,
second.
we have a motion by Ms. Earl, seconded by Ms. Wilson. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to tab item number 12, discussion of the, taxpayer liaison report.
Good evening, Board of Directors. I just wanted to let you all know that all is well. There has been no changes from the last report I had given you all. So if you all have any questions for me, I'm here tonight. But I will be receiving the State Comptroller's results from the Appraisal Review Board surveys, hopefully by the end of this month.
Right. Any questions for Tracy? No? Thank you. Moving on to tab item 13, Chief Appraiser's report.
Just a quick report for the board members. We are gearing up for a reappraisal year. Everybody will be receiving notices. We're anticipating a larger number of protests. We'll be meeting with the taxing entities in March to give them a rough estimate of what we're looking at in values. We're working on the finalizing of those right now. Deadlines have changed, as I told you, in November. So we already published one article in Sunday's newspaper, and we'll be publishing two more extra ones, one the first Sunday of February and then the first Sunday of March. That will remind everybody of the change of the deadlines for protesting, and it will be on our website. We already have some new information on the website, and there will be some more information regarding the deadlines. Just to let you know, on January 29th, 30th, and 31st, the last 3 days of January, we met today with the City Tax Office, Maria Pasillas and her staff, and with Miracle Delivery. They'll be having a mobile unit out here to collect property taxes. They will take everything, cash, checks, cashier's checks, bank checks. The only thing they don't take is credit cards, but that has to be done online. But other than that, and Ms. Carter is going to be here to help the property owners so that if they didn't bring the bill, we're going to allow them to come in. We have 3 computers that are set up for customer service, and she'll help them be able to get into their account and print their bill so they don't have to leave and come back. We're going to assist them with that. So we've met with them and have everything set up. Hopefully the weather will be nice. One year we had rain, but I think they said last year we had over 750 people in the 3-day time period come in and pay their taxes here. And every year, this is our 4th year, and so we've seen 3 years, and it's increased every year. So other than that, unless the board has any questions of me, we're done.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So we ended up the year with a little over $900,000 in surplus. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what happens now?
Okay, the percentage that the taxing entity pays into our budget will be the percentage of credit that they receive on their next payment time period.
Okay.
So if you pay 18% into our budget, then 18% of that 900 gets credited on your next payment. And if it's the next 2 payments, so it's a credit.
So because we are in a reappraisal year, do you think we have sufficient budget for litigation?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, good.
At this point, I think with the 400 reserve that you allowed us to have, and with increasing our line item budget, I'm pretty confident going forward that we'll be good.
Okay.
some of the bigger litigators settled last year and
Yeah.
did waivers and stuff, so those won't be issues. It's a full appraisal year, right? All
Yes, ma'am.
residential and commercial?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for commercial and industrial property, I really want to make sure that there's a lot of attention paid to what's been happening, because the building official for the city told me that in 2017, they pulled down over $1 billion worth of permits. So there's a lot of major construction going on, private sector construction. There's also been a lot of transactions, like in the central city and downtown, and where like city has bought property and it's a matter of public record. I know like sometimes you can't get prices of sales, but there are enough like sales that have occurred where there's a public record. So I want to make sure that we're really aggressive about getting all that information and using that as a basis for looking at valuation on some of these areas where there's been improvement.
Yes, ma'am. We do send out letters to all of the public entities, asking them if they've had any transactions the last year to please send us that information. We have issues with the city, so I have to go through the city attorney to get that information. The department doesn't readily give that up. Some of the other public entities black out the data, the sales amount. They consider that confidential, but we do go out, not just with local public entities, but state entities also. The Texas Land Commission, we go and ask information from that. As to the permits, we have to remember that we have to look at where it is on January 1.
I know.
Yeah, so that is all looked at. Downtown is looked at. What we do right now with downtown is we're looking at more of an income and cost mix until we actually start seeing some sales activity that is showing, or rents that are increasing in rents. Then we can go in and even do more. But downtown is an area we reevaluate every year, even if it's not a reappraisal.
There are a lot of
year.
residential properties now down there where rents are public, where you can get information on rent.
Right. We go out a lot of times, all of us do, and the departments are very adamant, very diligent about going out. And you know how you go to restaurants and you see the little thing for rentals of apartments? We get those flyers about the listings and the sales. And so all that information. We also use CoStar and LoopNet. And there's one for apartments that we utilize that is a national publication where we get sales information. So yes, ma'am.
Because all the taxing entities, like El Paso Community College, have made transactions and acquired land. I don't know if EPIC has bought land for some of your new projects, but it would seem to me that those entities would not want to withhold that if it will assist with, like, helping you to determine fair market value for things where you can't get access.
You would think that would be the case. It's kind of a mix.
I mean, is it?
But we do hound them to get that information.
I was going to ask you as an example, the Bassett Tower building, which was up, I don't know what the valuation was on it 2 years ago, but there's been a lot of improvements to it. It's not open yet, but there's been a lot of improvements now, so I would assume that 2018 would have a higher valuation on it.
Well, right. When they first purchased it, they totally gutted it, and you're going to have a lower value. Then as they start doing the improvements, the value will be going up. And that's going to be basically on a cost approach. What it costs to do these improvements until we can start seeing the income generated. Mr. Chairman, in your financial, if you look on page 34, that's the refund on a monthly. That'll be what each entity will be refunded.
Okay.
How it's broken down. That's page 34 of the
the audit.
Yeah, of the audit.
And I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
They've all gone up really well, significantly, what we got last year to this year. Is it just due to the appraisals? Is it due to more property? Is it?
It's a mixture.
Okay.
It's a mix. As properties are being built and completed, then your appraised value is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
As we start seeing more income generated from a property, then that property is worth more because of so then you'll see an increase because of that. You'll also see an increase in your entity's values based on new construction. So that will go up also.
Ours is wonderful. Thank you.
Most of the outlying areas are what's going up. Unfortunately, the core is kind of staying at a straight line.
So this is what you'll be giving back to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
credited towards your account.
Credited, yes.
All right, if there's no further business before this board, we are adjourned. It is 5:47. Thank you all very much.